we are going to talk about SDG 1. What is SDG 1? SDG 1 is defined as eradicating poverty in all its forms. Poverty means the level of income of employment is very low that it cannot satisfy basic human needs. There's a lot of groups that suffer from this poverty, such as kids, parents, workers. Education is also affected by the poverty. Imagine, children that live under poverty have to leave their school and find a part-time job to support their family life. That brings a bad future for those kids. There's a lot of benefit if we achieve no poverty. For example, if there's a lot of intellectual workers, they can contribute to the country and raise the country income. So what are the initiatives and effort that can be done by the government, by everyone to flatten the poverty curve? So stay tuned.
Malaysia is expected to become a fully developed country by 2020. To achieve this ambition, the government needs to work hard to improve their approaches in reducing poverty. Malaysia is not only struggle with absolute poverty, but we also struggle with relative poverty, which already been a several issue. Although the government has conducted various poverty eradication program, but there are still people who doesn't have access to it. Other than that, Malaysia also tend to focus more on rural poverty without knowing that urban poverty needs attention too. This is because the higher living cost in the city. People who suffer from poverty have to live in a hard situation without access to essential service and necessities. While struggling hard to meet their primary needs in life, they also need to provide basic needs for their family. This research focuses on finding a solution in order to reduce poverty in Malaysia. So other than that, we talk about research question. There are 3 research questions in our project. So the first one is, what might be the potential challenges and obstacles that our society will face in order to achieve SDG 1 in Malaysia? So the next one is, what are the initiatives and efforts by the Malaysian government and the non-government organisation NGO to eradicate poverty in Malaysia? And the third one is, how far is the progress of Malaysia in achieving SDG 1 from year 2014 until 2020? So furthermore, we talk about hypothesis. So the first one is, if we can overcome challenges and obstacles of no poverty, then we will be able to be a developed country and make sure all segments of society have access to basic amenities, jobs that can give them sufficient income and have access to a productive asset. Okay, for the second one is, if we work together to perform all the initiative and effort done by the government to eradicate poverty, then we will achieve our goal in 11 Malaysian plan to uplift the B40 state of life. So for the third one is, if we can track our progress in achieving SDG 1 in Malaysia from 2014 until 2020, then we can construct an upcoming program to ensure that our goals to eradicate poverty can be achieved.
This study is important to highlight all steps taken by the government to tackle poverty. Next, it is to address challenges that we face in order to reduce number of people who live in poverty. Thousands of adults and children are struggling with real and immediate economic hardships. Therefore, this study is conducted to make sure that Malaysia is ready to face any upcoming challenges regarding poverty. Eradicating poverty confirms the bonding between family is strong and indestructible. When facing poverty, these families are struggling to pay expenses and meet a living wage. This financial problem creates psychological distress such as depression among the family members. This study can also ensure low health risk by having life insurance, which is quite expensive for some. Next, it is to raise awareness among communities, especially students, about poverty. some people did not realize that they are facing poverty. Therefore, this study is important. Apart from that, this study is conducted to identify the Malaysia's progress in eradicating poverty in line with SDG 1. Finally, it is important to allow the country to define potential barriers and strategies to overcome poverty.
For literature review, we will discuss Malaysia's possible challenge to achieve no poverty and initiative taken by the government and NGO to the progress of SDG 1 in Malaysia. There are 5 possible challenges for Malaysia to achieve no poverty. First, the presence of foreign workers. Second, lack of exposure to poverty reduction program. Third, limited access to government facilities in rural areas. Fourth, low education and skills level. Fifth, high living costs. Malaysian government and NGO also put on efforts and initiatives to eradicate poverty in Malaysia. There are few significant initiatives that have led to the reduction of poverty in Malaysia, such as New Economic Model, E-Kasih, Satu Azam, Felda, and Bantuan Prihatin Rakyat.
Now, we are going to talk about research design and methods. The first research technique is literature review. We collect data from literature review, such as journals and new articles. Even though this method is time-consuming, but this is the most effective way to do this research. Methods of this research is quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative is defined as systematic study of phenomena. Sampling method are used, which is online surveys. Random sampling of population in Malaysia are used. The targeted groups are students, government and non-government employees. The Google form are distributed using social media such as Instagram, Twitter and WhatsApp. In this research, the instrument used are websites, namely journals and articles. And the second instrument is online survey, which is Google form. Now, we are going to data analysis. There are 142 respondents. 85.9 from the respondent are students, 9.2 are private employee, and 4.9 are government employee. In the Google form, we asked the respondent, do they aware about poverty in Malaysia? 90.1% of the respondents say yes, and 96.5% say it is a critical issue. We also asked the respondent about how serious this issue are in Malaysia in the scale 1 to 5, and the majority said 4, which is serious. Based on the answer from the respondent, 103 respondents say that challenges in achieving no poverty in Malaysia are mainly by high living costs. In the scale of 1, very disagree, and 5, very agree, we asked the respondent, do Malaysia focus on developing urban area more than rural area? And majority said yes. Lastly, we also asked the respondent about the initiative and effort to lessen the Malaysia poverty rate. We can conclude that there are 2 main effort and initiative. The first, government and non-government organizations need to play their role by giving living utilities to the rural area. And second, give an opportunity to the citizens who are jobless rather than taking foreign workers.
Of our research, we can conclude that almost 96.5% out of 142 responses agreed that poverty in Malaysia is a serious issue. This can be seen through the huge income gap between the rich and the poor, which also can be represented by the huge difference in household income. Since poverty has become a severe issue in Malaysia, actions need to be taken not only by the government but also by the citizens, since all of us have our own role in handling this issue. Lastly, poverty can be avoided, so everyone needs to play their own role diligently. That's all from our group. Have an amazing day and stay safe. Thank you.